Sorry. I just can't get it right. Okay. Call to order a meeting of the Wilsonville City Council for the work session at 5:44 p.m. on Thursday, January 19th. And we'll start with a review of agenda and items on consent. Do any of the councilors have a comment? Okay, seeing none. Are there any councilors' concerns? We'll now go into our pre-council work session. And start with, the discussion about the appointments to the city boards and commissions, and we'll have our staff report with Mr. Autenot.
Do you want to start with city or others? Okay. All right. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Fitzgerald, members of council. I'm Mark Ottened, Public and Government Affairs Director. Tonight, we'll be touching on several topics, one of which will be our city council assignments to or appointments to regional intergovernmental bodies. And we have approximately 17 positions that we seek to fill with city council representatives. In your packet was this kind of like a cheat sheet, if you will, of various bodies, both public and nonprofit organizations that the city participates in. Right now, we'll be focusing on a particular set of regional and state appointments that require a city council member to either be the representative and or the alternate. This is a kind of a crazy diagram, but it gives you an idea of the interlocking directories and bodies of how they work. At the bottom where there's a set of staff, technical from various jurisdictions who will advise the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, C4, or the Washington County Coordinating Committee. Each of those committees gives input to JPACT on transportation or an MPACT on land use, and they also give input to the Board of County Commissioners, all of whom give input to the Metro Council, who often are the ones that codify the final decisions pertaining to transportation and land use decisions. We have a total of about 9 different bodies. The Aurora State Airport Master Plan Planning and Advisory Committee from the Department of Aviation, the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, known as C4, a C4 Metro Subcommittee, the Washington County Coordinating Committee, the Willamette Intake Facilities or WIF Commission Board, the Regional Water Providers Consortium Board, the French Prairie Forum Local Governments Working Group, the Greater Portland, Inc. Small Cities Consortium, also known as GPI-SCC, the Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Area Coalition, and finally, the Positive Aurora Airport Management Group. We'll go over these one by one. Over the approximate year and a half period or so that the Aurora State Airport PAC has been meeting, Councilor Lehan was our primary representative, and CD, Community Development Director Chris Namsu, was the alternate. And of course, you received staff support. The question becomes now, which member of council would care to be the representative to the Aurora State Airport Master Planning Advisory Committee? And we could, or we can run through them all, whichever you'd prefer.
I think it would be easier to do that all at the end.
Okay, very good. The Clackamas County Coordinating Committee has had Mayor Fitzgerald over the past 2 years and Councilor Linville as the alternate. The C4, our Clackamas County Coordinating Committee Metro Subcommittee, has had Councilor Linville as our primary representative and Mayor Fitzgerald as the alternate. The WCCC, Washington County Coordinating Committee, has had Mayor Fitzgerald as the primary representative and Council President Ackerval as the alternate. The WIF Commission, which is supported by the Tualatin Valley Water District, has had Councilor Ackerval as the representative, and the alternate was Councilor West. We asterisk this because Councilor Ackerval has been elected by the board to serve as president during 2023. So we assume that she will continue as the rep in 2023. The Regional Water Providers Consortium Board had Councilor West as the rep and Councilor Ackerval as the alternate. The French Prairie Forum Local Governments Working Group had Councilor Lehan as the rep and Councilor Linville as the alternate. The GPI, Greater Portland Link Small Cities Consortium, has had Mayor Fitzgerald as the representative. The Willamette Falls and Lanius Heritage Area Coalition has had Councilor Lehan as rep and myself as support. And finally, the Positive Aurora Airport Management Association, or PAM. Previously, we had Councilor Susie Stevens, who is also the executive director of the Charbonneau Country Club, participated in PAM primarily as her role as the executive director of the Charbonneau Country Club, but she was also a city councilor for a period of that time. That, in a nutshell, is the summation of all the various bodies that we seek to fill. And I'll bring back a prior screen that summarizes all of them. How would you like to proceed?
I'm going to make a recommendation to the council in the regular meeting that they approve my recommended appointments to these positions. And if you'd like, I could, unless you'd like to read what I had presented.
Sure.
Why don't you just go ahead? You've got the mic there.
Okay.
Mr. Ottenett.
For the first one, for the Aurora Airport Master Planning Planning Advisory Committee, would be Councilor Linville. For the Positive Aurora Airport Management Group, or PAM, it would be Councilor Dunwell, and that's number 10 there. For C4, we'd be looking at Mayor Fitzgerald to continue. For the C4 alternate, we'd be looking at Councilor Berry. For the C4 Metro Subcommittee, the primary representative would be Councilor Berry, and the alternate would be Mayor Fitzgerald. For the Washington County Coordinating Committee, Mayor Fitzgerald as the representative and Council President Ackerval as the alternate. For the WIF, Willamette Intake Facilities Commission, Council President Ackerval as the rep and Councilor Dunwell as the alternate. For the Regional Water Providers Consortium Board, Council President Ackerval as the rep and Councilor Berry as the alternate. For the French Prairie Forum Local Governments Working Group, we would be looking at having Councilor Dunwell as the primary rep and Councilor Linville as the alternate. For the Greater Portland Link Small Cities Consortium, Councilor Linville as our primary representative. For the Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Coalition, Councilor Dunwell. So those are the ones that are the external regional intergovernmental bodies. Okay. All right, we will move on now to our next presentation.
And I will add that I have spoken with the counselors about these, and we've tried to balance people's schedules and interests and all of that.
Now, back to Zoom.
We're going to get some good participation and representation.
Okay, something happened. Share screen has disappeared. Oh, there
So
it
it's
is.
because this one is still on. So you're gonna hit show, share.
Pick the right one, yeah. Okay. Okay, our next set of discussion pertains to city council representative appointments to city bodies. We have 3 different city bodies that require a city council liaison. Again, on your sheet, this was on the local city and 3 different bodies for whom we are seeking these appointments. The Arts, Culture, and Heritage Commission, the Tourism Promotion Committee, and the Wilsonville Metro Community Enhancement Committee. I'll note that the first 2 are ex officio non-voting positions, and for the third one, the Community Enhancement Committee, these are voting positions, of which we have 2 city council positions, and they recommend funding projects or programs to the city council, along with citizens who participate on that committee. The Arts, Culture, and Heritage Commission has had Mayor Fitzgerald as a representative for the past several months. The commission was formed this year. The Tourism Promotion Committee was formed in 2014, and Councilor Lehan has been the council rep for that entire time. The Wilsonville Metro Community Enhancement Committee, as we noted, has 2 positions, which were filled during the past 2 years by Councilor Linville and Councilor West. That, in a summary, are the 3 different committees that are commissions in the city. And I understand from your prior discussions that for the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Commission, that Mayor Fitzgerald will continue on as the city liaison. For the Tourism Promotion Committee, that Councilor Berry will be the rep. And for the Wilsonville Metro Community Enhancement Committee, that Councilor Berry and Councilor Linville will both serve on that committee.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we come to one more agenda item. And I will ask Mr. Leo to join us here at the podium. Start your video.
Greetings, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now let's see. And we go to share screen. Okay, very good. Very good. All right, thank you again, Mayor, members of City Council, for your patience here. Mark Ottenet again, Public Government Affairs Director, and I am joined by...
My name is Greg Leo, for the record, with the Leo Company. I am your public affairs consultant.
Okay. Tonight, we will be discussing the 23 to 24 state legislative agenda. And this document is based on long-term city council policies that are adopted through the comprehensive plan, master plans, and strategies. This document provides for consistent city policy positions in relation to proposed legislation. And mainly, it provides guidance for staff and consultant in evaluating legislation and developing testimony so we can understand the city council's position. This is a sample of a draft of our state legislative document. The primary policy issues that we'll address in the agenda include governance, local autonomy, and to oppose state preemption of local rules, and to support state-shared revenues that the state provides through cigarette and alcohol taxes, but also to oppose unfunded mandates.
Transportation is always very important to Wilsonville. We have many concerns: the bike ped bridge, the Boone Bridge seismic refit, increased funding for transit, Willamette locks, and of course now our extension of west to Salem.
Economic and community development. This includes land use and infrastructure development issues for walkable neighborhoods, urban growth in cities as opposed to outside cities, reclamation of contaminated brownfield sites so they become productive again, and new tools to fund infrastructure and support for a broad mix of housing types. Workforce developments, increased funding for K through 12 and college skills training.
Taking care of the environment and looking out for natural resources is always a concern. We especially pay attention to anything related to the Willamette River where we draw our water.
Now, we have proposed a new legislative tool starting this year for this session, and this would be focused on relevant, timely 2023 legislative session priorities. And so we seek to promote timely our municipal policy positions on specific issues of concern. It reflects ad hoc, timely issues of the day for which the city may not have long-term policies that address a given issue, but for which the city council considers important during the 2023 session of the legislature.
Some of these examples were the opportunity for high-speed broadband, which came up in the 2021 session, where the city successfully lobbied for $1.665 million in state funding using ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act funds. We worked with the city of Sherwood. We actually lobbied that together with Sherwood, and in order to create the Sherwood Broadband Wilsonville Governing Expansion Project. There's other examples. For example, the affordable housing project that the city received funding for in the 2022 session, the $1.926 million of funding for the Wilsonville Transit Center Development Affordable Housing Project. It subsidized also social and transit services on the ground floor of this new facility.
And last September, the City Council requested specific legislation from Representative Courtney Neuron, House District 26 of Wilsonville, and we submitted 4 legislative concepts as potential 2023 session bills. Representative Neuron and Senator Woods have introduced these legislative concepts as bills now for the 2023 session. And while the city tends to play defense at the legislature, this will be the first time that the city has actively developed and promoted legislation. Our top 2023 session priorities are the 4 bills that the council requested. In this case, House Bill 2668, which pertains to the Aurora State Airport, and would create coordinated intergovernmental planning between relevant state agencies and affected local governments with some land use planning sideboards. And we've already met with the co-chair of the Joint Transportation Committee, Representative McLean, and she has found favor with these concepts.
Working on House Bill 2666, which would make coterminous the smart service territory alignment with the city boundaries. This would adjust the TriMet boundaries so that areas within the city of Wilsonville would be served by our smart transit system.
I think we should pause on that one and inform council that we did have a meeting with TriMet, and I don't want to mischaracterize it. I think we have an agreement in principle that may obviate the need for that legislation. But until we get something in writing, we're still going to move forward with the legislation. So I just wanted to announce that. The mayor was at the meeting.
Yes.
And if you want to add to it, you can, sure.
Well, I think the bill is very well structured, and I'm in favor of the idea of the bill. If we find that that there's an alternative that would achieve the same thing without needing to go forward with the bill, will all talk about that, and we will make a decision.
And so the two things that I think the full council needs to know is that we have gotten them to agree to releasing the 3 properties that they're drawing payroll tax on that are in the current city limits. We have an agreement in principle on that, and that will be coming to you soon. And then the next step will be trying to figure out our urban growth boundary and rural reserves and what that process. They've identified a process that looks pretty good right now. So that's kind of where we're at with the big picture and the smaller one of
And the
Coffee
whole
Creek.
council would be involved in those decisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it for 12 years. It's more than exciting. Yes, it is.
We did have a good meeting,
We had a very
and
productive
I
meeting.
appreciate the staff's work on this. And right now, the way you described it is where we are.
Very good.
Was it a change in heart because the house fell?
Very astute.
It may have been an incentive.
It's a very good observation.
Good timing, Susan.
No.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it is because of that.
Yeah.
Also, our third bill is House Bill 2662, which would be an ODOT Public Transportation Division study of the West North Willamette Valley extension to Salem from Wilsonville with stops in Donald, Woodburn, and Kaiser. And I will note that our public affairs consultant, Mr. Leo, has been out beating the bushes and hustling, and we already have the cities of Aurora's support, the city of Donald, we're going to get the city of Hubbard and the city of Woodburn, and the city of Salem also, it looks like. So we've been out there beating the bushes on this one.
We also are very concerned about the reauthorization and the funding of the Business Oregon regionally significant industrial sites. So we have asked for the sponsorship of 2663, a House bill, and I'm sure this will be a topic that will evolve over the course of the session.
Yeah, mainly this helps to fund infrastructure to serve new industrial sites or brownfield sites. So hopefully the program can get funded because we're all looking for new sources of funding for infrastructure. Additionally, we propose a few other additional session priorities that are contained in your packet. That includes support for increase of high-speed broadband access and distribution. Councilor Linville has noted this one on several occasions. To develop new funding programs to subsidize child care resources that improve workforce availability. And both Councilor Eckerval and Councilor Linville have been involved in this one. And number seven, the Oregon Mayors Association Task Force on Homeless proposal. So there's a budget proposal in the legislature for 2 components, and we would support that.
The League of Oregon Cities has also a 2023 legislative agenda. It's got 8 points, which are very important. Infrastructure, finance, and resilience, and funding for critical infrastructure to create opportunities for needed housing would be the first. Second, local funding to address homelessness. This comes a lot out of the Oregon Mayors Association recommendations, but is a problem statewide. We want to address some of the shortcomings in Measure 110. That was the decriminalization of small amounts of drugs that many cities are finding problematical, and they want to revisit that at the legislature. Economic development incentives, including enterprise zones and long-term rural enterprise zones and strategic investments to help with economic development. Community resiliency and wildfire planning. They support investments in climate and wildfire resiliency planning and infrastructure upgrades to fill the existing gaps for that. The transportation safety enhancements, basically LOC is looking to give us more tools at the local level to make our streets safer, including establishing fixed photo radar and other local speed control to try to have safer streets, also to support the Great Streets program. Full funding and alignment for the state land use initiatives, where there is land use changes, we want to make sure that the local funding of the implementation is fully funded and adopted when those planning requirements change. And finally, they have some flexibility for the transient lodging tax, especially important to places like the Oregon coast that rely on those kinds of revenues to create services that tourists use when they come visit their communities.
And finally, we wanted to make one note about our 2023 Wilsonville State Legislators. This will be the first time in history, maybe,
I would say.
that we have a state representative and a state senator from Wilsonville. Representative Courtney Neuron, House District 26. This is a map of her district. You can see basically Wilsonville and Sherwood are her two main cities, and maybe a small portion of external Tigard on Bull Mountain.
Representative Neuron has some excellent committee assignments this session. She'll be the chair of the House Committee on Education. She's on the House Committee on Early Childhood and Human Services and the House Committee on Gambling Regulation, which will take a hard look at what is done with the Oregon Lottery, how lottery is conducted, and how those funds are used.
As we mentioned, Senator Aaron Woods, formerly of our Planning Commission, who is now the state senator for Senate District 13. You may recall that a Senate district is composed of two House districts, so it includes Representative Neuron's district and Representative, is it Bowman?
Oh, Bowman, yes.
From
Ben Bowman.
Tigard, and so his district goes all the way from Wilsonville and includes Tigard.
Senator Woods has some excellent committee assignments. He'll be the co-chair of the Joint Committee on Information Management and Technology. Very importantly, the Wilsonville is the co-chair of the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, Subcommittee on Transportation and Economic Development. That is the Ways and Means Subcommittee that looks at all transportation projects, which is really good for us. He's also on the Joint Committee on Transportation, which has both senators and representatives. All transportation legislation will go through that committee. But that's not all. He's on the Senate Committee on Conduct and also the Joint Committee on Conduct, and that reviews cases of conduct with members, basically of members of the legislature. And he's a member of the Senate Committee on Veterans, Emergency Management, Federal and World Affairs, which is a committee that oversees emergency management and Veterans Affairs and a number of other issues.
That, in a nutshell, is our presentation on the 2023-24 state legislative agenda and our state legislative priorities. We'd be happy to hear your comments and discussion and any modifications that you may wish to make.
Councilors, any comments or clarifying questions?
Well, that was a really nice overview. Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's our pleasure.
I remember hearing, it must have been at an LOC, League of Oregon Cities meeting early on when I was in the city council, that not a lot of cities have this level of a drafted agenda.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that our city has this track record, and it allows us to be nimble and be ready. And so they don't have to come back to us and say, is it okay if we work on this issue? We've given them license to take these things on.
It's nice to have Mr. Leo, who probably knows the state legislature as well, if not better than anybody in the state.
Thank you. This will be my 26th year of working with the city on issues in Salem, so.
And this will be actually our 10th year of having a state legislative agenda.
Oh, 10th year. We should have a reception for it.
Let's see how we do. Let's save that for June or July.
We'll wait a few months on that.
Having Mr. Woods on all those transportation committees with the Boone Bridge is huge for us.
Very important. And west of Salem, too, I think.
Yeah.
So if there are no other questions, we will be voting on these legislative priorities and this legislative agenda in our meeting. So this is a good, any questions you have, it's a great time to ask them.
I guess, not so much a question.
Yeah,
I do, I am very happy with how this serves our work at the state capitol. And the presentation and the material, I especially is excellent. I especially like, I think, perhaps for our new council members too, that, what is it called? Citations to authorities that act as foundations. It's like the history of actions that the city council has taken, if it's something in one of our master plans or, a resolution or whatever, that support these legislative agenda items. I really like that documentation that we have there. And I think that this legislative agenda, beyond serving in our work at the state capitol, it helps serve in our work here on council in coming to consensus on things that come up in every council meeting that we have, all through the year. And so I think that doing this exercise has utility beyond, what happens in the state capitol. And I wonder if, as we head into some of our goal setting in a number of weeks, if this won't be a helpful document for us to be working with too, as we talk through some of those things, because it's just another representation of action that we've decided to take, places where we've come to agreement.
I agree. And I also want to pay attention to Representative Neron's positions, that particularly the chair on the Education Committee, with the fact that we have such a diverse population that are in our schools, to make sure that we are not only as a city focusing, but we have the advocate within that position as the chair to really start taking care of and managing the future of our education throughout the state.
Yeah. Key.
Great point. And that is another example. Sometimes people do want to know, I'm glad you brought that up. Well, how does the city work with the schools? We have said for years that we value a good relationship with our schools, and that's another way. Go ahead.
Can I go ahead?
Thank you for presenting this and for the work. I especially like the tool, which allows for some flexibility for us as the state of the world evolves. And as we've seen, I think, in the last couple of years, where we have new funding opportunities, and it allows us the ability to move some of those items to the top, that we can do some advocating on behalf of our citizens for some of those resources. My question has mostly to do with the timeline, and I know that neither of the two of you have been sitting around waiting for us to look at this before you begin your work with the legislature, with our elected officials, because the bills actually were I don't know, several weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago or whatever, before these legislative priorities come to us. So I guess my question has to do, I know that it's something that, in terms of the composition of the council, we want to be sure that we have our newly elected representatives, our officials here, and sharing in the approval of the priorities, but it also seems like it may be late in terms of us knowing kind of what's advocating for things that are coming out, because I know that some have already gotten numbers, some have moved ahead in committees, some are dead in the water already, and we know that. So I'm wondering, how do we reconcile that in terms of the timing? Because it seems like it would have to be in December when we were talking about legislative priorities prior to the session starting.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilor Wilsonville, excellent question. And in some ways, we have a bit of a continuum here in that the previous council, if you will, gave us a 22 to 23 state legislative agenda, and then in September, council gave us direction on the 4 legislative priorities. So we were able to continue mainly focusing on those 4 bills. Those 4 bills were pre-session filed on January 11th, I believe.
Correct.
And the legislative session actually commenced just this past Tuesday on the 17th. So we're really not running late, actually, and since we really need to have our new council bless our new legislative agenda, in some ways, we have to wait. And we would hate to bring this to you at your first meeting when you're just sworn in and having to throw all this stuff at you. So we think we can wait till the second meeting and not lose any momentum at the legislature, because frankly, this first week, they're holding committee organizational meetings, and they're interviewing the agency directors on major projects. So they won't begin to consider bills for probably, what, a couple of weeks?
Yeah, we are, Mayor Fitzgerald, members of the council, I would just say we're ahead of the game. I mean, Mark and I were working on our priority bills in August. They were pre-session filed. They came out at the first day of the session, along with 1,800 other bills. We're all busily reading bills to see, you know, where they are, you know, in terms of our interest. But we are certainly not behind the curve on our priority bills. Now, what will happen is there will be bills that will emerge, and this is where it's great to have the flexibility. So issues will come up that are of importance to our city. We have a process that Mark and I work through, and we are on top of the bills as they come out. So I don't think we're behind at all, and I'm frankly kind of optimistic. I think we're going to do well with our 4 priorities because I think they are very consistent with the direction of this legislature.
One more question, and I know that you ran down the names of the cities that were probably going to be partners in the extension of WES. You didn't mention Kaiser, are they? But I think Kaiser, from my talking with the mayor there, I think the mayor of Kaiser is also supportive of that. So.
Yes, another city for us to approach.
Yeah.
We actually just met with the transit districts, too, that are involved in the bill this week also, and they intend to go to their boards for resolutions of support also.
Yes, so we'll be reaching out to Kaiser. This was kind of Woodburn week this week. I met with the city manager and the mayor, and Woodburn is very enthusiastic about it. You know, I'll be talking with their council next Monday. Mark is on the agenda for the Salem Council. The Salem Council has a legislative committee that's already endorsed the bill, so we are hopeful that the Salem Council will support it. So, but yes, Kaiser is definitely kind of next up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think we have congressional support from Congresswoman Salinas as well.
And we'll be contacting our members of Congress, too.
The key thing to remember is that this is a study. So there are so many issues related to this that'll take some time to think through all those issues. So we're doing that.
As a new council member, will you provide continuity of updates to us as council and mayor on the status of the bills that you discussed this evening?
Yes, Mayor, Councilor Dunwell, yes, we can certainly do that. As a matter of way our process works, either one of us, and usually Greg, finds some bills, and see, we attend many meetings. There's a Metro Lobby Group meeting. There's an LOC Lobby Group meeting.
Yeah, there's OEDA. I mean,
Oregon Economic Development.
During the session, I'm at least 3 meetings. Some of these have 40 lobbyists in them, and we track all the various bills. We hear each other's points of view. We see where we can work in concert and where we might disagree. So
I think the key issue on the updates is if we have something significant that we're moving on something that we're personally pushing, then I would, of course, keep you up to date, and Mark would as well. Now, there may be things that come up that something bad we're trying to prevent from happening. The past councils and the policy we have now is that if I need to act on something, then the council has empowered me to do that because we wouldn't have time to come back to council.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add a couple of other things. On another group that fits into this is the Metropolitan Mayors Commission Consortium, and I think you said LOC. And so oftentimes, or at certain points, this Metropolitan Mayors Commission Consortium will want to issue a letter in support of or in opposition to a bill, and it comes up really fast, and you have to vote, like, here's the idea, vote by Tuesday, it's going in. And how do we do that? Because none of the cities can stop and hold a council meeting and all that. So you have to keep moving. So our legislative agenda lets us do that. And if it's, Mr. Leo, Mr. Ottenat are very good about reading through there and really deciphering, is that really in line with what we have, or is it outside of the lines? Because it needs to be in line with it. And then also there may be opportunities, and then sometimes I would sign a letter, or you might say, or like our city would be signing on with those other cities on some Tuesday, you know. But also there might be a time where our staff advises that we should write a letter, or that somebody should go testify. And so if any of the counselors are interested in doing that sometime, speak up.
And the preference is, if we have time, the preference is always to come back and ask council
Yes.
to vote, to approve. That's always kind of the baseline where we start. It's just in those weird moments where we don't have the time to do that. But if it's something that's critical, and I think that there may be some difference of opinion on council, we might do something like a call down and just give you the information and say, here's the staff
I don't want to
recommendation.
surprise anybody, or it
And
sounds.
if we had like a 3-2 or a 4-1, that might give me pause to call the mayor and say, maybe we shouldn't
Or
do
just
this
stay
letter.
silent.
Yeah, or just stay silent. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will note too, when we prepare testimony, we look to our city staff, because there's a lot of expertise, our building official, our community development, our planning staff, our legal staff. I mean, we're generalists, and so we go to the specialists who help us, give us the information we need, and then we craft it into pretty language, and then have the mayor sign that and submit testimony in that fashion is often how we work, and then we can circulate the testimony with council.
The goal is to keep you all informed to the greatest extent possible so that you don't hear something and it's a surprise to you. Right.
I would say that it's some of those letters of support, or if they're right in line, we don't always have a chance to call everybody if it's a repeat of what's in there, but we can send them out. So what next?
League of Oregon Cities Day at the Capitol next week. And we've already, Council President Ackerval and I were on the prep meeting yesterday, and they completely briefed us on all the priorities and talked about the logistics. And so I think, and every day they're in session now, so I am looking at lots of hearings. The building is very constrained because of construction. So there won't be a lot happening in the building because of the CAM's seismic refitting of the building. So a lot of this session will happen online and via, remote. So that in a way is good though.
It makes it easy to testify.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the last item on our work session. I'll adjourn the work session, and we will reconvene for the city council meeting at 7 p.m. Meeting adjourned. Good evening. I'm calling to order a meeting of the Wilsonville City Council on Thursday, January 19th at 7 p.m. And we'll start by asking the city recorder to read the roll, call the roll.
Councillor Berry.
Here.
Councillor Linville.
Here.
Council President Ockervall. Here. Councillor Dunwell.
Here.
Mayor Fitzgerald.
Here. Please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion to approve the following order of agenda?
Your Honor, I move to approve the following order of agenda.
I will second that motion.
The motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We'll start with mayor's business, and tonight, which is actually one of our first meetings with our new council, the first order of business that I'd like to introduce under mayor's business is to have the city council elect one of our members as city council president. And the city council president has a role outlined in our charter to preside over city council meetings when the mayor is unable to attend, and also perform other duties when called upon. And so I would like to actually just take a moment to acknowledge the great job that Council President Ockervall has done as council president over the last 4 years. So really appreciate that. And I'd like to ask if I could have a motion, or if I could have a nomination for city council president.
Your Honor, I would like to nominate Kristen Ockervall for president for the city council.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Before we vote, does anybody have any comments? Well,
I think I don't know that this nomination or vote requires too many comments, but I think we are in great hands with our council president, as Council President Ockervall has demonstrated over the years and will continue through her this next year.
thank you. So with that, I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-4. Did you vote?
I'll abstain, I guess.
All right. Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention for the council president-elect who didn't want to vote for herself. So it worked out. During the pre-council work session today, earlier this evening, the city council considered and discussed both a 2023-24 state legislative agenda and also a set of state legislative priorities for the 2023 session. And our legislative agenda is in the packet, and it is really based on a long-term view of city work products that reflect master plans, various activities to get input from citizens and move forward on projects that sometimes are a long-term project and a continuing priority. So we have that influencing this, including our comprehensive plan. So what, as I mentioned, new this year is the 2023 state legislative session priorities. And the purpose of doing that this year, which is new for us, is to give us opportunities to also be more nimble and be able to respond to new challenges and opportunities that come up during the legislative session. And they may be areas for which the city doesn't have a master plan. It's not rooted in a long-term plan, but it has really important current urgency. So the document that we have provided will help guide the city staff and the consultants to gauge the legislative proposals as they come up day to day, hour by hour in the legislature, and so that they can advocate and act with and for the city to achieve our legislative goals that the council has set. So we're in a unique position in another regard this year, and that is that we have a state representative and a state senator who are both from Wilsonville. State Representative Courtney Neron and State Senator Aaron Woods both have lived in Wilsonville for many years, and we are lucky to have such local representation. And of course, their districts go beyond Wilsonville, but we're glad they are here and have been available to meet with us on many of these issues. So I would like to ask Council President Aukervall for a motion to adopt the 2023-24 state legislative agenda and 2023 state legislative session priorities.
Yes, Your Honor, I move that we adopt the 2023 state legislative priorities and agenda as provided in our packet.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. The motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. So since our last meeting on January 5th, I will report on some of the things I've taken part in. I hope everybody on the council and members of our community and people attending tonight had a good Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Given all of the issues of civil rights that are still a very important priority across our country, this holiday really does give us a good opportunity to reflect on that, the accomplishments that have been made, and also the great deal of additional work and accomplishments ahead of us. And I know there were a number of things to participate in Oregon, around this area. In this last early part of January, the Washington County Coordinating Committee, which represents the cities in Washington County, including Wilsonville, met and discussed a presentation from Metro on high-capacity transit strategy planning for the upcoming 2023 Regional Transportation Plan. So there's a lot of discussion going on about that RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, and you can read more about that on the Metro website. And they also provided an update from the Oregon Department of Transportation and TriMet on that Regional Transportation Plan proposals. So looking ahead at the meetings I have coming up that I'd like to inform the council and community of is we are observing, I know the Lunar New Year is coming up, and it is a point of celebration in a number of Asian countries, and that is to be celebrated on Sunday, January 22nd. Next week, I, along with other city council members from around the state, and also Council President Aukervall, will be attending a day organized by the League of Oregon Cities called City Day at the Capitol. And it's organized, we'll have a chance, it's League of Oregon Cities and the Oregon Mayors Association. So we'll have a chance to meet elected officials and go to a number of more meetings. So that'll be a good experience. I am meeting with the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium also next week to approve that group, to be part of approving that group's 2023 state legislative agenda. And there are about 24 cities in the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium, and they've become more and more active over time, and they have a diverse representation. And we present our priorities to that group as well and try to get other cities to join with us in advancing our legislative priorities. The following week, I am meeting here at the City Hall with Metro Councilor Garrett Rosenthal to discuss city and SMART. Again, it's another meeting about the Regional Transportation Plan projects and to discuss our 2023 legislative priorities. And I'm also going to meet separately with Clackamas County Commissioner Paul Savas to discuss economic development, housing, and transportation issues. That's what he's asked to discuss. I also am looking forward to talking with him about Clackamas County's Built for Zero program and some of the things they are doing for all of the cities in Clackamas County around addressing homelessness issues. They have made a lot of progress in that regard. On February 1st, our budget committee meets, the city budget committee, with our 5 citizens and all of the council, and we will meet to hear a mid-year review from the city finance staff. And then on February 2nd, the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meets and will be approving the Metro Subcommittee nominees to serve on Metro's Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation and Metro's Land Use Policy Advisory Committee. The next meeting of the City Council I'd like to announce is scheduled for Monday, February 6th at 7 p.m. here at City Hall. One other thing I did last week that was really enjoyable that I forgot to mention is I was invited to meet with the American Legion Post 65, which meets in Wilsonville at the Villebois Community Center. And they are doing such great things around our area. They raise money. They had just, they offer some scholarships and help to veterans. And they are actually also organizing a blood drive coming up. So they're a great group, and I think you'll start seeing more of them attending other city events. And they are very aware of the needs of veterans and want to be there to support them. With that, we'll move to the communications section of our agenda, and we have a presentation by the Executive Director of the Wilsonville Chamber of Commerce, Kevin Frosty O'Malley. Welcome.
Your Honor, City Commissioners, City staff, thanks for the opportunity. I've been told I have to start the video here. Let's see if we get that to work. Yay. And we'll start the slide. Oh, didn't work. Thank you.
So you're going to go back to your Zoom. So go to here,
Oh, share the screen.
please.
You want to drive?
It's okay. We're used to this.
Thanks very much for the help. Here this evening to share some really great news and exciting update on the Oregon Business Recovery Center. What is a business recovery center? Okay, we can go do it this way maybe. There we go. Sometimes it's referred to as the FEMA of the financial world. So when the pandemic first occurred, there were a number of places around the country that began. You're going to do play? Thank you. Okay. There were a number of opportunities through CARE where the CARES Act, where business recovery centers were set up. Clackamas County, as an example, set up one here in Wilsonville. And since that time, there's also been ARPA. In fact, that is the Oregon BRC. Due to the ARPA funds from Senator Thatcher's original Senate District 13, that funding flowed through House Bill 5006 to us here in Wilsonville, where we put a coalition together of 4 cities at that time within that Senate district, which of course is Wilsonville, Sherwood, Newburgh, and Kaiser. We have really 2 major pathways for the Oregon BRC, Business Recovery Center. First and most importantly are small business grants. So you have as a handout the basic explanation of what we do, but particularly for this evening, I wanted to make sure that that you all are aware that opening January 31st are the grants. So the federal money flows not nearly as fast as everyone would like all the time, and by the time you get the program set up, that's where we are. So we started back in August, and we're ready to roll that out. So that will be up to $10,000, and I'll go through some of the opportunities here in just a minute. But that's the direct pathway right now that most everybody's focused on, because looking back, the ARPA federal guidelines said that the ARPA monies were principally there to help from the pandemic losses caused by the pandemic. So that's what we're doing in the small business grants, but it's not just small business grants for the Oregon BRC, it's also recovery assistance. What does it mean? That's for nonprofits and for-profits. We are offering the ability for that nonprofit or for-profit business to work with a qualified professional one-on-one to get the kind of assistance they need. That could be HR help and how do I hire, could be need help with marketing, social media, e-commerce, accounting help, and the like. And we'll discuss, there's some workshops and skill building available. So the area of the Senate District 13 were the zip codes. So that's basically where we serve. Starting off from the bottom, you can see Kaiser, St. Paul, Dundee, Newburgh, Sherwood, and of course here home base, Wilsonville. Notice it says surrounding area because we are working zip codes. So while the city limits may be the city limits, we are actually anyone within small business that qualifies within that zip code qualifies for help. Small business grant, a couple things to consider. Again, it's a look back, so it is saying you have to be in the correct zip code, you have to be a for-profit business with 50 or fewer FTEs. If you have part-time, every part-time person, 2 part-time people equal 1 FTE, and the business had to be open before January 20th. Federal guidelines say this is supposed to be a pandemic, so that's looking back through 2019 and 2020. We have other services for other businesses. Again, we'll talk about that. But for purposes of the grant, that's it. There are extensive FAQs on the website. QR code takes you there. Oregon BRC takes you there. And if you're interested, I know you have lots of reading in your business and in your volunteer jobs here. But if you wanted to, the e-newsletter gives you all the information, and we're staying up to date on exactly what's happening. Training and workshops. We've taken lots of surveys asking small business, and surprisingly, the QuickBooks desktop version is finally going away because they can't get everybody to convert. Nobody wants to convert, so they're doing away with it, which means small businesses now must convert. So a lot of businesses are concerned because it's entirely different. So we'll be running some workshops and have some expert help available for that. Not surprisingly, for many small businesses after the pandemic, finding new customers is a very important factor. So marketing and advertising workshops we have lined up. Lastly, when it comes to regional conversations, we're working among the different cities and saying what opportunities are there to help support both childcare for owners and workers and workforce development. So that's as we get through grants, as we get through one-to-one. It's not exactly a small topic, but it is an important one that we intend to continue to address. Getting in touch, Jessica Chenet is our program director, and that's her contact information. Fatima Falcon is our outreach and engagement specialist, and yes, habla español. It's the reason why we also have the Spanish. We've done, I think, a really incredible job of outreach. That's the basic question and answers. I'm happy to. You have a postcard, which basically is giving you a heads up in a couple of weeks. That postcard drops to 1,800 businesses, so we've gone through the list. We've qualified that they're open. So those are home-based businesses. Those are just about any business that's in our zip code. All total, there'll be about 7,600 businesses in those 4 communities that'll be directly contacted. Additionally, we have major campaigns with Pamplin Media, both digital and print, where the sponsored stories will be. We have Hispanic radio, so we've done quite a lot of outreach to make sure that small businesses understand it. Thankfully, the city has worked closely to get that word out too. So we just really want businesses to know that it's there. I can tell you that when it's all said and done, the most important part of what we do is, are we making a difference? I think maybe I have a minute left. We ask some of our first one-to-one counselors what it meant. What resources have you used from the BRC? So far, the resources we've used have been marketing consulting with a local professional. Was there any immediate benefit? Yeah, the immediate benefit was more than the consulting service that we received. Every phone call, meeting, email correspondent with Jessica from the BRC has made us feel like we are not alone. The overwhelming feeling of uncertainty that the pandemic brought on the community and businesses was isolating. Businesses are people. The support and understanding has brought us a sense of being in this together, not just a statistic of another business affected by a global pandemic. The consulting service has allowed us to analyze what we're doing and how we could evolve and improve. The BRC services will make a difference for us going forward by taking what we've learned and implementing the suggestions, as well as getting a chance to see our business from an outside perspective. Would you recommend this? Absolutely. I was from a business in our community over 25 years here. So do we have young businesses? Do we have legacy businesses that have struggled through this pandemic and continue to try to figure out? That's who we're here to help. It's about the economic prosperity of our community. Any questions?
Thank you. I do have a question.
Please.
So since we have so many people who live in Wilsonville and have a business or a job in some other community, what if, do you ever get, I suppose if somebody contacts you and it turns out they're not in your actual geographic area, can you refer them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have, from a resource standpoint, so we're a business recovery center, but the R actually starts, in our mind, is about resiliency and resources. And when it comes to resources, we have a Rolodex going back to the old days that's quite impressive of all the different resources that are out there. So Business Oregon right now has some grants available. So if what happens is our process is we meet with the business, we have a conversation, and we do an assessment to understand what their needs are and help them figure out. And then if we can help them, great. If we can't, we point them on. In this case, because we work closely with the rest of our Clackamas County chambers, there is a BRC in Oregon City right now. There's a BRC in North Clackamas. There's a Oregon BRC in Lake Oswego and West Lynn. So in those areas, but we get calls this week from Beaverton, and we have to refer them out to, to some, we work with partners like SBDC who's developed a course. So we can pay for that course if that business is here in 97070, but we're going to make that other business aware that Small Business Management course by Clackamas SBDC is a great resource, and they should be looking into it. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Council President Akroval.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing this information in your presentation. Hopefully it's a fruitful way to help spread the word too. And I saw the information in the economic development newsletter that Matt sends out, I think, what is it, monthly or so. So postcard looks great. It's exciting to see that. And to hear about the workshops that you're putting together and some of those regional conversations, I think that you mentioned. One of them was on childcare that you touched on, and I'm curious, who are the partners that you're talking with on that topic?
So as an example, there was a business here in town that just recently went through a transition. We all work real hard to stay informed, but for whatever reason, the business didn't really actively communicate, and our person going door to door, our outreach person walked in and goes, "You're packing? What's going on?" Mm-hmm. "Oh, we're closing up." And so at the time then, we worked with the city to actually say, hey, can we do something? And they pulled together the resources in Clackamas County to say, what can we do for childcare? So that was an example of, let's look at a facility that we have. Can we figure out how to relocate that one? Can we figure out how to bring somebody in? Right now, we are hoping for some clarification on some ARPA guidelines about some of the funding relative to can we actually create some incentives for the business to actually pass through some of that money. The guidelines are a little fuzzy right now, and candidly, our board has taken a major leap of faith to make sure we stay within our guidelines. So until our consultant says concretely that we can do it, but we are continually to reach out to find out who else can help some on the funding side of it. And that's really the big issue right now is availability is a problem, but if we can at least get some funding, that would help because there are folks that would like to go back to work and, and they can't. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Linville.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to you, Kevin, and to the Chamber for the partnership that I think we have with our economic development. I think from what I have seen that we're all moving in the same direction in terms of trying to help businesses, and so I appreciate the Business Recovery Center work that's being done and getting this information out to the small businesses that there is an opportunity for some funding. We know we have some new businesses that are opening in Wilsonville, so that's exciting too. And I didn't make it to the free donut day, but I did miss that. But we're excited about anytime there's a new business that's coming. So thank you for the work that the Chamber's doing and for our partnership.
On behalf of the board, we appreciate the relationship with the city. That goes without saying. And city manager, we're back to being able to meet on a monthly basis again. There've been a hiatus through COVID, and on a monthly basis, touching base and saying how can we support one another, and that's great positive news. So.
Well, that's great. I really thank you too, and I just want to say one more thing about the child care topic. You might have seen, we had a survey done on child care presented by Matt Lorenzen last week. And Council President Aukerball is it Clackamas Child Care Task Coalition? Anyway, I'm really interested in whatever we can do for some creative ideas to get childcare working so people can go back to work.
So there's a quiet conversation among some folks about Business Oregon has some grant monies out. And the way they've defined the business need, we think could be interpreted to be a childcare. In other words, if that business said, we are going to do some incentives, could you in fact get that grant money? So, the creativity of continuing to ask is, I mentioned to City Manager Cosgrave the day before yesterday when we met that I was in Kaiser making a presentation this week for their city council, and their mayor said, we all understand the importance of small business in our community, and when this funding runs out in June, what happens then? And she said, we want to go on record that we think Business Oregon should be looking to continue to fund support of business recovery centers. And of course we said we'd love to hear that, and yeah, because the small business impact was most pronounced, and we all saw it during the actual pandemic. But to have legacy businesses who have exhausted all savings, and they now look and say they have to commit to a 5-year guarantee on a new lease. They're unsure what the sales are going to be. Some of our counseling right now is they were literally going to close up. I don't think it's appropriate to mention the business. So it was like, well, you're going to walk away from your asset. Let us get you somebody that can actually consult and get you some asset value, and hopefully get a business that will take that over. And in an ideal situation, perhaps an underserved community that is looking to start a business but doesn't have the capital, and we can figure out how to make the finances work. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of opportunities to, just as that legacy business said, there's a lot of aloneness and feeling isolated. isolated, and how do we, how do we break through that and partner with the city, partner with the experts that are the professionals, and say, let's move it forward. So I think you'll start to see our intention after the grant monies get exhausted, which will probably be within a couple months, is begin to share some of the success stories, because we think there will be and we hope that with the good faith effort that we're going to see a lot to be able to have some good news.
Please come back and share that.
Happy to. Thanks again for the time. And if there's questions, contacts here. We're easily reachable and would love to chat. So help us spread the word, please.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. That brings us to the citizen input and community announcements section. Do we have anyone wishing to speak or present? Okay. Then we'll go to councilor comments, liaison reports, and meeting announcements. And this is where I will start with Council President Aukerball.
Thank you. Since our last meeting, let's see, I attended the Clackamas County Child Care Coalition meeting just last night, actually, where we reviewed some of the feedback within the group on potential recommendations that group may push forward as they continue their investigation. This coming Monday, there will be a Williamson Intake Facilities Commission meeting. And since that group meets quarterly, this will be our Q1 meeting. And that's closely followed by the Regional Water Providers Consortium, which is many of the similar faces at that table, just a couple days later on February 1st, which the mayor also announced is our budget committee mid-year review evening. So I may step out for a few minutes and then come back to our budget committee meeting for that. So it's great to have the new year kind of underway. I'm also looking forward to the LOC Day at the Capitol this next week. That's an event that has been a tradition, but I have not participated in that in years past. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot there, and also hopefully connecting with our state level representative and senator that are from Wilsonville. We're very fortunate to have that. So looking forward to that event as well.
Thank you. Councilor Linville.
Thank you. Thank you. I yesterday attended my final meeting of the C4 Metro Subcommittee and handed the baton to Councilor Barry, who will take over in that meeting. There are new faces, so it's kind of the time of year that there is a bit of a change. I also attended last evening the Wilsonville Alliance for an Inclusive Community. They had a presentation over at Clackamas Community College at the Wilsonville campus, and it was entitled, "Can We All Get Along?" I think there were, I would say, close to 40 people, 40 or more people there, and they had a facilitator that actually did some kind of fun work with getting people to make some connections, and it was baby steps, but it was nice to see, and I think everyone who was there really was appreciative that that event happened. This morning, I attended the Clackamas Workforce Partnership Board meeting, and they have a quarterly meeting as well. The board, I think the next one will be in April. They're doing a lot of really great things with job seekers and workforce development. And so for I guess because this is not one of our regular committees, I thought I would just kind of read what their group does so that y'all had a sense of kind of what that group is doing. So it's a nonprofit workforce development board serving Clackamas County. It oversees the operations of WorkSource Clackamas, the Career Center providing free education, training, and employment resources for job seekers and employers. Clackamas Workforce Partnership works across the nonprofit, public, and private sectors to identify and address critical issues impacting the local workforce and economy, including barriers to employment faced by marginalized communities. Job seekers are served by an array of service providers working collaboratively to assist people in obtaining the skills and credentials needed for stable, long-term living wage employment. And I have to tell you that one of the successes that was discussed was Twist Bioscience. And the work that was done with our chamber, the city of Wilsonville, and the Clackamas Workforce Partnership in doing a recruitment fair for them. Not really a recruitment fair, but it was like a recruitment activity to really kind of promote the sophisticated jobs that they have available for people in our region, even beyond our Wilsonville area. So that was pretty exciting, and we got a little bit of props on that, as did our Wilsonville area chamber. So that was great. Next week, I will attend the State of the Workforce Breakfast and Panel presentation that is being put on by the Columbia Willamette Workforce Coalition. And that group is a collaboration of the Clackamas Workforce Partnership, Workforce Southwest Washington, and the Portland Metro Workforce Development Board. So we'll get kind of a snapshot of really what's out there, what's kind of on the horizon, what does it look like for workforce in our regional area. And then on the 1st of February, I am going to meet with Dr. David Plotnick, who is the Vice President for Instruction and Student Services at Clackamas Community College. And we're going to go through the Clackamas Community College facility over here and have some discussion. And I told him that I had been there for meetings but had never had a tour of the entire facility. So I'm going to bend his ear just a little bit about some of the academic or some of the program offerings here in Wilsonville and how we might partner to increase our opportunities for economic development and workforce in our Wilsonville area. So that is my report.
Thank you. That was a lot of meetings. Thank you for your outreach. Councilor Berry.
Thank you. So my calendar hasn't been quite as busy as all three of you, but yesterday I did attend the C4 Metro Subcommittee, and I was introduced to the committee, and then I was able to see who else is joining the committee and who's already been on the committee and hear about some of their issues with the high-capacity transit. So I'm looking forward to attending more of those meetings and participating and learning about my other assignments for the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dunwell.
Thank you, Mayor. Yesterday, I was fortunate to, at the invite of the mayor, to attend the French Prairie Forum. And we specifically spoke, as I think has been addressed earlier in the work session, House Bill 2662, co-sponsored by Representative Neron and Senator Woods. The representation from the city of Donald, the city of Aurora, Hubbard, and Woodburn were also in attendance. And the discussion was was very collegial, and I think that the relationship that's being built among those cities on looking at and supporting the study, the proposed study in the House bill, was really accepted with open arms. So very excited about that. And upcoming, on the 26th of January, I will be attending the League of Cities, since I'm a new council person, the Essentials Workshop, so I can learn all about those important areas. And then on the 3rd of February, I've been invited to attend the retreat for the Willamette Falls and Landing Heritage Association.
Okay.
And I have also been invited to have a prior meeting with Britta. I don't remember Britta's last name, but she is the president. And so I will be looking at, it's Britta Mansfield, and looking at whether or not that will be something we'll be attending also. So I'm very excited about the committees, by the way. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to represent Wilsonville. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I am just really thrilled to see all of the representation we have from all 5 counselors. Thank you very much. You're all going to help us make the progress we want to make. So we're off and going. So that brings us to our consent agenda, and I will ask the city attorney to read the consent agenda.
Resolution number 3034, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville approving a construction contract with Northwest Playground Equipment, Inc. for the Marassi Playground Inclusive Climber Project, and minutes of the January 5, 2023 City Council meeting.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Or a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And that brings us to continuing business, and I'd like to ask the city attorney to read the ordinances. And I do have a question. If you could clarify, are we going to vote separately on each of these?
Correct, yes.
Are you going to read them all at once?
So I'll read 872 and 873 together since they are the same, part of the same project, but you'll vote on them separately, and then we'll do 874. If that sounds good. Okay. So this is the second reading of ordinance number 872, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville annexing approximately 9.17 acres of property located at 9710 Southwest Day Road for development of a warehouse/manufacturing building and associated site improvements. And this is also the second reading for ordinance number 873, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville approving a zone map amendment from the Washington County Future Development 20-acre FD20 zone to the Planned Development Industrial Regionally Significant Industrial Area, PDIRSIA zone, on approximately 9.17 acres located at 9710 Southwest Day Road for development of a warehouse/manufacturing building and associated site developments.
Thank you. Tonight, we will consider on second reading ordinance number 872. Public testimony was accepted during the public hearing, which was closed after the first reading. I ask once again, do any members of the City Council wish to abstain, declare a conflict of interest, or report any ex parte contact or any information gained outside of the hearing?
No.
No. At this time, does staff have any follow-up information to present, or do any members of the City Council have questions for staff?
Thank you, Mayor. There's no further staff input on these items.
Thank you. Is there any discussion among the council about this second reading?
No.
Hearing no further discussion, I hereby ask the city recorder to make a roll call vote. Those in favor of adoption of the ordinance.
Mayor, can we get a motion on 872 first?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did that again. I'm just determined.
I move to adopt ordinance number 872 on second reading.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I was just testing you all. The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing no further discussion, I hereby ask the city recorder to make a roll call vote. Those in favor of adoption of the ordinance will, as their names are called, answer aye, and those opposed will answer no. Those who wish to abstain from the vote will answer abstain. The city recorder will now call the roll.
Counselor Berry.
Aye.
Counselor Linville.
Aye.
Council President Aukervall. Aye. Counselor Dunwell.
Aye.
Mayor Fitzgerald.
Aye. Ordinance number 872 is adopted on second reading. If you desire to appeal this decision to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, you must file a notice of intent to appeal stating the grounds of the appeal in the form and within the time prescribed by state law. Now we will consider on second reading ordinance number 873. Public testimony was accepted during the public hearing, which was closed after the first reading. I ask once again, do any members of the City Council wish to abstain, declare a conflict of interest, or report any ex parte contact or any information gained outside of the hearing?
No.
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 At this time, does staff have any follow-up information to present, or do any members of the City Council have questions for staff?
No further information from staff.
May I have a motion on the ordinance on second reading? Go ahead.
I move to adopt ordinance number 873 on second reading.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion among the council?
No.
Hearing no further discussion, I hereby ask the city recorder to make a roll call vote. Those in favor of adoption of the ordinance will, as their names are called, answer aye, and those opposed will answer no. Those who wish to abstain from the vote will answer abstain. The city recorder will now call the roll.
Counselor Berry.
Aye.
Counselor Linville.
Aye.
Council President Aukervall. Aye. Counselor Dunwell.
Aye.
Mayor Fitzgerald.
Aye. Ordinance number 873 is adopted on second reading. If you desire to appeal this decision to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, you must file a notice of intent to appeal stating the grounds of the appeal and in the form and within the time prescribed by state law. So now will the city attorney read the next ordinance?
Yes, I will. And Mayor, for your reference, this goes to the legislative script.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the second reading of ordinance number 874, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville amending Wilsonville Code Section 6.150, special use of streets and sidewalks and large special events, signs, and street banners.
Thank you. I call to order the Wilsonville City Council second reading on ordinance number 874. Does any member of the council have any questions for staff or the city attorney on ordinance number 874?
No.
No.
Hearing no further questions, do I have a motion on ordinance number 874? Councilor Dunwell?
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve ordinance number 874.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we enact ordinance number 874. Is there any discussion?
No.
Are there any further discussion or remarks by the council before I call for the vote? Hearing no further discussion or commentary, I hereby ask the city recorder to make a roll call vote. Those in favor of adoption of the ordinance will, as their names are called, answer aye, and those opposed will answer no. And those who wish to abstain from the vote will answer abstain. The city recorder will now call the roll.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Does the motion not need to say on second reading?
Since we said it at the beginning, that's fine.
It does not. Okay.
Thank you. Good discussion point. We finally got somebody. So I will again ask the city recorder to make the roll call vote as I described.
Counselor Berry.
Aye.
Counselor Linville.
Aye.
Council President Aukervall. Aye. Counselor Dunwell.
Aye.
Mayor Fitzgerald.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. That brings us to city manager's business.
Just, I believe Zoe has reached out to you about the goal setting and your one-on-one. I think you're all locked in with the facilitator. And then you should be receiving an email from Core Strength Assessment so that we can get all that filled out, because that will be the subject of your training.
Okay.
A large portion of that. If you have other ideas on training subjects or anything that you'd like to include in the Friday night session, when you're talking to Sarah, make sure that you get that information to her. If there are things that you would, as a new city councilor or as a seasoned mayor, that you would like to have as part of that discussion for Friday night, please let Sarah know so that we can work that into the agenda.
Okay. Is there any legal business?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to give the council and the community an update about the prohibited camping project. First, I wanted to remind the community that there is currently a questionnaire on Let's Talk Wilsonville about prohibited camping. The questionnaire also has a frequently asked questions page that has some really good information about the project and why we're doing it. We also have an article in the upcoming Boones Ferry Messenger on the topic, and I think maybe just tonight, an article was published on the Wilsonville Spokesman that also has some really good information. Our reporter, Kaylin Cassidy, interviewed me for that article, so there's some really good information in there as well. As a refresher, the city is undertaking a review and update to its local code provisions regarding camping on city property and city rights-of-way such as streets and sidewalks in response to new state laws and federal court cases. This is state-mandated work that every city in Oregon is in the process of doing. The goal of the city's camping code update project is to do this update in a way that is humane and complies with state and federal law by establishing clear rules about where, when, and how camping is allowed or not allowed on city property and rights-of-way. Cities cannot outright prohibit sitting, sleeping, or lying on all public rights-of-way or public property if there are no shelter beds, if there's not enough shelter beds available within the city. Due to federal court rulings, a city's ability to regulate sleeping in its public places is directly related to a community's ability to provide shelter for individuals who might otherwise need to use public places to sleep. State law does let cities regulate where, when, and how people can and can't camp on city-owned property, as long as the regulations are objectively reasonable. Time, place, manner regulations help make public rights-of-way accessible and safe to unhoused and housed individuals. They also allow for clearer management by the city. Under state law and federal court cases, cities may enact objectively reasonable time, place, and manner regulations. These are the when, where, and how of individual the when, where, and how an individual may camp on public rights-of-way or or city property. Time restrictions are when a person may camp, such as overnight. Place regulations establish where an individual may camp. And they could also define the types of public property where camping is not allowed, such as restricted utility facilities or nearby existing shelters if they exist, if they're in the city. Manner regulations establish how an individual may camp on rights-of-way or city properties, such as the size of a camp or items in and around a camp, or not allowing open fires or unauthorized electrical hookups and the like. Through the community questionnaire available on Let's Talk Wilsonville, we are seeking input from the community members about what time, place, and manner regulations are most important to them. We are also undertaking stakeholder interviews with service providers, community and business groups, other government entities, and persons with lived experiences. The information from the outreach will be shared with the council and the community at the City Council's February 23rd, 2023 work session. And to the extent any community members have any questions, I'm available for you to contact, and my information is on the Let's Talk Wilsonville page on this item.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of your work on this very complicated and pervasive and really important topic. And I know you've been actually working on it for several weeks, so it's not just starting.
Right, correct.
Maybe it's months.
Yes, thank you.
So that concludes our meeting. The meeting is adjourned at 7:54 p.m.